Hey y'all, Caleb here. So today's video is going to be different than the ones I've done so far, as you can probably tell by the new splash page. This video actually ties into a few of the episodes we have done on Adventures in .NET. I know we've done at least two episodes on Blazor, and we recently did an episode with Matt Groves, and he has been doing C# Advent for the past 4 years. And um, as part of his C# Advent, he has multiple people do blog posts or videos or um, instructional content um, for C# Advent. And this year he has two every day from the 1st to the 25th of Christmas. And I decided to sign up, and mine is on the 21st. So today we're actually going to build a simple Advent calendar in Blazor. All right, so let's get started. Um, I figured we could start from scratch, and I'll walk you through it. We can go over some of the specifics of Blazor. So Blazor is one of Microsoft's newer technologies, um, and basically what it allows you to do is write C# for both your front end and your back end. Um, and you can use JavaScript, and there's more advanced things you can do with it. But if you just want to stick to HTML, CSS, and C#, you can. And so what you're going to do is when you open up Visual Studio and go to create a new project, you're going to search for Blazor app. So I've done one before, so it shows up for me, but just search for Blazor. And once it does its thinking, it'll pop it right up to the top. And so we're going to select Blazor, and we're going to click next. And you can name it whatever you want, but ours is the Advent calendar, and we're going to create it. Now, this next step is important depending on what you're planning on using this for. Blazor has two versions: a server-side app and a WebAssembly app. The Blazor server app, everything is on the server. So everything that you do is really going to be, for lack of a better term, part of your middleware, so to speak, right? In your back end. And so it communicates with the browser using SignalR. And if the user loses their internet connection or has an issue, the application will stop running. It may even show a message telling that they need to reload because it's lost connection. And then your other option is a Blazor WebAssembly app, which is really, I guess, more of the cutting edge part of this, and the part that's gotten a lot of people really excited is WebAssembly is a technology that is integrated into every browser out there these days. It's become part of their standard. It's not heavily used yet, but what it allows you to do is it allows you to do a lot of interesting stuff in the browser that you couldn't do before with just HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, right? And with Blazor, it actually takes your C# code and compiles it down and uses, I believe, a version of Mono currently that it injects into the browser to process or to use your C# code, which is a really cool feature. For us, we're just going to do a server-side app today because I just want to show you some of the basics of Blazor itself. But the WebAssembly app is one of the really cool features, and I think something that most people are going to want to try or to dig into. So we're going to click Create. And then you drag it over to the right window. And we're not going to do an update. Okay, so the Blazor template out of the box, you have a template for MVC, you have a template for Web API. Blazor has one as well. So let's take a look at that just real quick. Um, so yep. So if you turned on HTTPS or use it, um, it's going to ask you, if you want to avoid warnings in your browser with IIS Express. And we're not going to be using IIS Express for this, but you can go ahead and click yes and basically install the certificate and click yes. And so here is our Blazor app. And of course the port's going to be somewhere in the 44,000 range, but you have home and you have counter and you can increment and you have fetch data. And this is actually fetching data, so-called backend call that basically shows, hey, you could do something with SQL or a database structure or even NoSQL, right? And some of you might be familiar with this template, this layout. This is actually what's used in if you're building a React or an Angular template running inside of Visual Studio inside of a .NET app. We're going to go ahead and close that out. And we can close this out. And so with Blazor, you've got a lot of the same things you would have in a normal .NET Core application. You have your startup, right? You have your program. You have your app settings. A couple things that are different with Blazor is you have these Razor files, which aren't that different really than what you might be doing in an MVC application, but it's got its own template and structure. And so your app Razor, honestly, for a simple Blazor app, you're not going to need to touch. It's going to do everything you need to do. But you've got your app assembly, right? And then it's looking for your route data, which we'll go into in just a minute. And then your route views and your default layout, which is very similar to an MVC app. And if it doesn't find anything, it'll actually just, say, sorry, there's nothing here. And so this is how it routes you with inside the application. Your imports, this is basically exactly what you would have in MVC. You're pulling and using statements for parts of .NET Core that you're going to need inside of Blazor. And then shared, the names of these might look somewhat familiar, but you have your main layout, which in MVC is going to be your underscore layout. And then your nav menu is actually where all your routing happens. And they've even got it built in for mobile. So, right, so if you go smaller, you get the toggle nav stuff. But Blazor has this idea of nav links, right? And this first one is basically your default one. It's along the same idea as MVC is having your default route if they don't put in a route or a fallback, right? So this is your default route, which uses nav link match.all to make sure that it falls back to this. And then you have two other options, counter and fetch data. And the href that they point to is really the interesting thing here. You can see it's just text. And we'll go look at why this works and why it's just text in a minute. And then survey prompt is a component that they created as part of this template just to show you how it works. And inside this component, this is a fairly typical Blazor component. You're going to have your HTML at the top, and you're going to, you can have some of the your specific Blazor properties or parameters inside of the HTML, referenced using the @ And then the rest is really just HTML classes, and it's styled with CSS. This at code part is actually where you're going to be writing all of your logic. There is another way of handling logic in a separate file if you prefer, to have them separated, just HTML and CSS in one, just code in the other. But this is the preferred method, or the suggested method. Similar to React or Angular, right? You can have everything in one file. So let's keep going. Let's see. So pages. This host HTML file is basically where you have your head and your body, basically all of your external endpoints, so to speak, right? Your CSS and your JavaScript. And if for some reason there is an error, right? Because this is a server-side version of Blazor, these are the error messages you'll get if for some reason it fails to load or if there's a problem. And then counter. Okay, so this is where the text inside of the nav link comes into play. For pages or for components, Blazor components that you want to be able to navigate to, you're going to have that app page at the top. And after that app page, you're actually going to have the name of the route, so to speak. So because this page is counter, it will be found and matched to the nav link inside of your nav menu. And same for fetch data. You have your page with fetch data. And we're not going to go into the specifics of what they're doing here because we're actually going to build out some of our own. And then you have the index. In the index, you'll see they added this this survey prompt component as an example, and they're actually using it here inside of your index, which is going to be your default page, and they're passing in the title, so that when you get back to the survey prompt and you're passing in this parameter title, it will actually show up here. And then data is how they're handling their weather forecast on the fetch data page, which I won't go into because we're going to do our own version of this. And then you have your www root with CSS. They use Bootstrap and Iconic for the icons, of course. And then you have your own site CSS file, which you can update as needed. So the first thing that we're going to do, I think we're going to go ahead and just close all these down for right now. One of the things as a C# developer that you get used to, right, is writing some backend code, writing some logic, getting it where you want, and then starting a debug process, and then stepping through it, making sure it works. If it doesn't work, going back and tweaking. And you can do that in Blazor too, but because you have that front end piece to Blazor, you do have the option of hot reloading or live reloading, depending on what you're talking about. You've got that in Angular and React and even Xamarin, I believe these days. And Blazor, you have that functionality. I don't know that it's necessarily fully baked yet, so there are some quirks and possible issues with it, but that's the first thing we're going to do is we're going to set up our Blazor application to allow for that reloading. So one of the first things you're going to want to do is go into Projects and Solutions, ASP.NET Core, and under this Auto Build and Refresh option, it is most likely going to be set to Auto Build and Browser Request, IIS only, right? But you can actually change it to auto build and refresh browser after saving changes, which is what we want. So anytime we save a Razor page, we want it to rebuild and push that back out to the browser. So we don't have to start and stop it, right? So we're going to click OK after we've made that change. Then another thing you're going to want to do and I don't know that this is absolutely necessary, but this is the recommendation that I found out there on the internet, and I'll add some links for context, so you see why I'm doing certain things. But I'm gonna copy one that I've already got, some codes. You don't have to actually see me struggling to type it out. So in .NET, you can actually, instead of just doing a .NET run, you can do a .NET watch run. And that's going to give you this a similar setup to using hot reloading or live reloading. So right now, we're actually updating this. We want it to include Razor, and we're actually going to change this to CSS since we're just using CSS, and then your C# files, right? So we're going to save this and we're going to close it. And we need to make one more change, and that's in our host file. So you see here, right, because we're doing Blazor server, this JavaScript, it's using the framework Blazor server because it's using SQL to talk back and forth. So we actually want to add another chunk of JavaScript. Okay, and we're going to do that right here. Okay, so this environment tag allows you to specify whether you want to use development, staging, production. Those are the three built-in ones. You can, of course, create your own environments or different levels if you want, and we can dig into that into another video. But inside of this, we have a script that actually looks for Blazor inside of the DOM window and checks the reconnection. And if it's down, it actually tries to force a reload, right? And because this is server side, right, when we make a change and it tries to process that change, it actually may kill the .NET process and restart it. And this makes sure that it gets picked back up and ends up running. So what we're going to do is we're going to go in here and we're going to actually start Advent calendar. Okay, so we're actually going to start a .NET watch run. And you can, of course, do a .NET run or debug inside of Visual Studio, but this, okay. I know why. Because here, let's take a look at this. And this is just, right, that was silly on my part, but here, let's look. So Blazor Advent calendar is where you have your solution file. We need to go down one more level, which is actually where our project and all of our files reside. So we're going to go down one more. Okay, and then we're going to try .NET watch run again. Okay, and so basically it's looking at your app Razor file, right, which is your base, so to speak. And yeah, we're good. We're not concerned about this. This is localhost, we're fine. And now we have this running inside of a .NET, right, console executable, which is typically what I use over IIS Express anyway. But we have it running with a watch. So let's actually go make a change real quick. Oh, and we need to save that because we're going to need that. And let's go make a change to survey prompt. So let's see if this works. Actually, we're going to make a change in the index pointing to survey prompt. All right. And we're going to click save. And then we're going to go back over here. And you may see the dashes in the top that actually shows you, hey, we're processing a change. You know, and give us a second, we'll give it back to you. And you see that it actually found the change and refreshed the browser. Now, if you were not doing a .NET watch and you were making some changes, you would have to basically kill the process and reload it to see those changes, which is it works, but it's not super efficient, especially for what Blazor can do for us. So we're actually going to um, start to do a little cleanup here because, as I said, we're going to create our own Blazor Advent calendar, and I'm going to show you some of the functionality that Blazor gives us. So the first thing that we're doing here is, like I said, we're going to clean up some. So we don't need this guy, and we're going to change this guy to Advent calendar, and we're actually going to change this guy to today's surprise. Um, because we're what we're going to do here is we're going to create we're going to update the index with some of our some, I guess, more generic content, but we're going to create a present component that is going to be reusable between multiple pages, right? Which is very similar again to React and Angular in that sense. And then we're going to change this name to present. Okay, and we're going to close that. We're gonna save this. Okay, so we don't need either one of these anymore. Okay, so um, what we're gonna do is we're gonna go into counter, right? And we're gonna rename it, and it may bark at us, but we're gonna rename it anyway. And we're gonna actually change this to view present. And it's going to say, are you sure you want to do this? And we're going to say yes. And it's gonna throw up an error. Not a big deal. Um, but we're going to change this page to present, right? So um, now what we should get is, if we go back over here, we have Advent calendar and today's surprise. Let's see. This may force us to restart the .NET watch run, which is okay. Okay, so we're gonna close this and exit, and we're gonna make sure. Okay, we got present there, and we have present here. Okay, and we shouldn't have any other references to that just yet. So let's do another .NET watch run. But what that basically allowed us to see is that that is the router built into Blazor, showing it's working for us, right? There we go. Okay, so it showed us there was nothing here to see because we made a drastic change. Really, we completely changed the name of a Razor component. In that case, that's not something that's going to be able to pick up on easily. But you see, we got our counter back at today's surprise with the path of present.